Busy work, the productivity trap costing you income and clarity. Most knowledge workers confuse activity with accomplishment. The brain registers motion as progress. It interprets busyness as productivity. This confusion is not a character flaw. It is a design feature of human cognition. But the economic cost is measurable. You can spend 40 hours completing tasks, responding to messages, attending meetings, and organizing information. At the end of that week, your effort will be visible, your exhaustion will be real, and your output, the actual value you created, will be minimal. This pattern has a name: busy work. It is distinct from deep work not by effort, but by cognitive architecture and economic return. The question worth examining is this: what if the work that feels most productive is systematically preventing you from producing value? The cognitive problem. Work in knowledge professions divides into two categories, defined by cognitive demand and leverage potential. Busy work requires low cognitive intensity and produces linear returns. Email management, status meetings, task coordination, administrative processing. These activities generate visible progress and social validation, but minimal compound value. Deep work requires high cognitive intensity and produces asymmetric returns. Strategic analysis, complex problem solving, system design, critical decisions. These activities generate delayed feedback and little visible motion, but create exponential leverage. Research on knowledge worker behavior reveals a structural problem. The average professional allocates 60 to 70% of work time to coordination and communication. 30 to 40% remains for value creation. Within that remaining time, interruptions occur every 3 to 5 minutes on average. Each context switch carries a cognitive switching cost, approximately 23 minutes to return to full task immersion. The mathematics are unforgiving. If you work 8 hours and sustain 3 interruptions per hour, you lose between 4 and 6 hours to cognitive reload overhead. This is not a time management failure. This is a systematic misallocation of cognitive capacity. The financial implications clarify when you map work type to income leverage. Busy work scales linearly. Double your hours, double your output. The relationship is proportional and bounded by time availability. Deep work scales non-linearly. Improve your thinking quality by 20%. Multiply your output value by 200%. The relationship is exponential and bounded only by cognitive capability. Income growth follows output leverage, not effort volume. High-earning professionals are not working twice as many hours. They are producing work that cannot be easily replicated, work that requires sustained cognitive depth. Every hour allocated to shallow processing represents an hour not building that leverage. The opportunity cost compounds daily. Why do intelligent people systematically choose the wrong path? The answer lies in how the brain evaluates productivity signals. Intelligence correlates with pattern recognition capability. This same capability makes you sensitive to incomplete information loops. An unanswered email registers as cognitive load. A pending meeting invitation creates low-grade anxiety. Your brain evolved to close open loops, not to evaluate their strategic importance. High performers are conditioned to respond to urgency signals. Responsiveness becomes conflated with competence. Availability becomes proof of commitment. The modern work environment exploits this. Digital tools optimize for engagement frequency, not depth. Organizational systems measure visible activity because it is easier to track than cognitive output. Status accrues to those who appear busy, the paradox. The same analytical capability that enables complex problem solving also makes you vulnerable to sophisticated distraction. The psychological explanation. Human cognition operates through two processing systems, identified in cognitive psychology as System 1 and System 2. System 1 processes automatically. It is fast, energy efficient, pattern-based. It handles familiar tasks, provides immediate feedback, and operates comfortably with frequent interruptions. Busy work activates System 1 almost exclusively. System 2 processes deliberately. It is slow, energy-intensive, analysis-based. It handles novel problems, provides delayed feedback, and requires uninterrupted attention. Deep work demands sustained System 2 activation. The brain defaults to System 1 whenever possible. This is not laziness. This is energy conservation, a survival mechanism older than agriculture. Cognitive effort registers neurologically as a threat signal. Your brain interprets the discomfort of sustained focus as a warning to reduce expenditure. This is why deep work feels uncomfortable, even when you are capable of it. Task completion triggers dopamine release regardless of task value. Checking email produces the same neurochemical reward as solving a strategic problem, but with 1/10 the cognitive cost. Your reward system cannot distinguish between valuable and valueless completion. This creates 4 psychological mechanisms that form the productivity trap. First, urgency bias. The brain prioritizes immediate demands over important long-term value. Urgent feels like important because it triggers the same threat response activation. Second, completion bias. Small, frequent wins activate reward circuitry more reliably than large, delayed outcomes. Your brain optimizes for dopamine frequency, not output value. Third, visibility bias. Measurable activity feels safer than ambiguous deep work because progress is observable to others and to yourself. Psychological safety comes from demonstrable motion. Fourth, validation loops. Responsiveness generates social approval. Approval reduces status anxiety. Reduced anxiety reinforces responsive behavior. The loop self-perpetuates. These mechanisms create emergent system behavior. Busy work generates more busy work. Each email you send creates an average of 2 replies. Each meeting you attend creates follow-up coordination. The demand grows to fill available capacity. Organizational incentives align with this trap. Managers reward visible effort because depth is difficult to measure. Peers interpret availability as team commitment. Your own identity becomes entangled with responsiveness. If you define professional competence as accessibility, deep work registers psychologically as negligence. This is the identity barrier beneath the productivity barrier. Consider the leverage equation. Output value equals thinking quality multiplied by time invested, multiplied by structural leverage. Busy work optimizes time. More hours, more output. But time is capped at 24 hours and realistically bounded at 8 to 10 for cognitive work. Deep work optimizes thinking quality and leverage. Better thinking produces disproportionate value. Higher leverage multiplies individual effort through systems, decisions, and asymmetric impact. The principle of concentration applies here. In most knowledge work, 20% of activities generate 80% of value. The inverse is equally true. 80% of activities generate 20% of value. Most professionals invert this ratio unconsciously. They allocate attention democratically across all demands. This feels equitable. It produces uniform mediocrity. Strategic work allocation requires systematic inequality, ruthless focus on high-leverage activities, systematic elimination of low-leverage demand. Every hour in shallow work represents not just lost output, but lost compounding. The difference between linear and exponential growth becomes a chasm over 5 years. Your income ceiling is set not by how hard you work, but by what you choose to work on. The deep work decision system. The core insight. Productivity problems are typically selection problems disguised as execution problems. You do not need to work harder. You need to choose different work. The framework begins with classification. Evaluate every task against two independent dimensions. First, cognitive demand. Does this require sustained, undivided attention, or can it be completed while partially distracted? Second, leverage potential. Does this create proportional value, double the input, double the output, or asymmetric value, small input improvement, large output multiplication? This produces four distinct categories. Quadrant One, deep work. High cognitive demand, high leverage. Strategic thinking, complex analysis, system design, critical decisions. Skill acquisition in areas that multiply future capacity. This is where income growth originates. Quadrant 2, systematic work. Low cognitive demand, high leverage. Process documentation, automation design, delegation frameworks, template creation. This work creates future capacity without requiring peak cognitive state. Quadrant 3, maintenance work. Low cognitive demand, low leverage. Required compliance, necessary coordination, basic communication, minimal engagement, complete efficiently, do not optimize. Quadrant 4, the trap. High cognitive demand, low leverage. Perfectionism applied to low-impact tasks. Over-research that delays decisions. Unnecessary complexity. Cognitive effort spent on work that produces minimal value. Eliminate ruthlessly. Conduct a work audit. Track 1 week in 30-minute increments. Categorize each block honestly. Most professionals discover they allocate 15 to 25% of time to Quadrant 1, 10 to 15% to Quadrant 2, 30 to 40% to Quadrant 3, and 20 to 30% to Quadrant 4. The economic pattern is clear. Income correlates with Quadrant 1 percentage, not total hours worked. The elimination protocol follows a strict hierarchy. Level 1, cessation. Identify work you perform from habit rather than necessity. Work that satisfies others' urgency but not your strategic objectives. Work that, if stopped, would cause no material consequence. Apply the dissolution test. If I ceased this activity entirely, what would break within 30 days? Most answers are nothing significant. Level 2, automation. Cognitive tasks that follow rules can be systematized. Information processing with clear logic can be scripted. Scheduling and coordination can be delegated to software. Level 3, delegation. Work others can complete at 75 to 80% of your quality level. Tasks that develop subordinates' capabilities. Low leverage work required by organizational system, but not requiring your specific expertise. Level 4, batching. Remaining shallow work should be consolidated into contained time blocks. Email, 2 to 3 windows daily, 20 minutes maximum each. Meetings, specific days or specific hours, never scattered throughout the week. Administrative processing, single weekly block. Elimination feels like risk. Psychologically, it registers as potential failure. What if something important is missed? But continuing low-value work is guaranteed loss. The cost is measurable. Foregone Quadrant 1 time multiplied by your cognitive leverage potential multiplied by career duration. Practical rule. If a task cannot be performed in a state of sustained cognitive focus, question whether it belongs in your responsibility set. Environmental architecture determines success. Temporal structure. Identify your biological peak focus period. For most individuals, this occurs 2 to 4 hours after waking. Reserve this window exclusively for Quadrant 1 work. Defend it with calendar blocks marked non-negotiable. No meetings, no email, no exceptions. Physical environment. Remove visual distraction. Phone, absent or powered off. Secondary screens closed. Desk surface clear except for current task. Single task workspace. Digital environment. One task, one window, one application. No background tabs. No notification potential. Email client closed. Social signaling. Door closed if available. Status indicators set to unavailable. Explicit communication to colleagues about focus blocks and alternative contact windows for genuine urgency. The depth formula. Productive depth equals time multiplied by intensity minus context switches. Research indicates cognitive reload cost of 20 to 25 minutes per interruption. A single unplanned question consumes 30 minutes of productive capacity when reload is included. Deep work sessions require minimum duration. 90 minutes to reach full cognitive immersion. Optimal sessions, 2 to 4 hours. Maximum sustainable deep work per day for most professionals, 4 hours. Elite performers, 5 to 6 hours. This seems modest until you calculate compound impact. 4 hours of genuine deep work daily exceeds most professionals' monthly Quadrant One total. Measurement creates accountability. Traditional metrics fail. Hours worked, tasks completed, emails processed, meetings attended. These measure motion, not value. Effective metrics. High leverage outcomes produced. Strategic decisions advanced. Complex problems resolved. Measurable value created. Revenue generated. Costs eliminated. Capability built. Weekly audit questions. What Quadrant One work did I complete? What was its impact on strategic objectives? What shallow work consumed more than 3 hours? What will I eliminate next week? Track correlation between Quadrant One hours and income or career advancement over 90 days. The pattern will emerge clearly, if you track honestly. Build reinforcement systems, daily. Morning. Identify single Quadrant One priority before any reactive work. Evening. Log deep work hours and output quality, high, medium, or low. Weekly. Review work classification accuracy. Identify new elimination targets. Calculate leverage ratio, value created divided by total hours invested. Monthly. Assess income-output correlation. Adjust deep work capacity based on performance data. Refine elimination criteria as capability develops. The required identity shift. Professional competence is not measured by responsiveness. It is measured by the quality of thinking you produce and the leverage you create. When tempted by busy work, apply the allocation question. Is this the highest value use of my cognitive capacity in this moment? The answer clarifies decision. Busy work is not a time management problem. It is a thinking problem. The trap is not the work itself. The trap is the belief that motion constitutes progress. Most professionals will complete entire careers confusing effort with output. They will work diligently. They will feel productive. They will remain uncertain why income and impact plateau while others advance. The difference between those who build leverage and those who remain occupied is not intelligence. It is not work ethic. It is not circumstance. It is the capacity to distinguish between what feels productive and what produces value. Deep work is not about working more. It is about thinking clearly enough to work on what compounds. Clarity precedes selection. Selection precedes leverage. Leverage precedes income. The choice is cognitive, not operational, and it compounds. The mind capable of observing its own busyness has already begun the separation from it. If this analysis clarified your thinking, consider subscribing. We publish one video per week, each designed to examine how intelligent professionals think, focus, and make decisions at a high level. Your subscription helps us continue producing long-form intellectual content in an environment that rewards distraction. Thank you for your focus.